terms of benefits of flexibility. So there's some myths and there's some facts that are probably important to understand. Flexibility has a benefit in terms of its application to you and what you want to get out of it. It ultimately, as with anything, comes down to the individual. I would say for general life, it's probably pretty useful to be able to touch your toes. It makes just putting your shoes on.
Yeah.
Doing day-to-day stuff.
That's
if you
true.
have kids, picking up your kids, there's so many things that would make easier. If, for example, you want to do bodyweight training, then again, being able to touch your toes, having a good pike will mean you can do an L-sit. It means you can do a press to handstand, potentially have a good shoulder flexibility. It means you can handstand better. Being able to do a middle split means you can potentially do straddle front lever, straddle planche easier. So really, like, it depends. The benefits of stretching are down to the individual. There certainly is definitely a big mental aspect to stretching, because the central nervous system controls that stretch reflex. Stretching can definitely have a relaxing effect. That's the reason many people do yoga. It integrates in this kind of relaxing kind of side of things, breathing, releasing tension, for want of a better word. But one thing that it doesn't do is it doesn't prevent injury. So there's a common one that it's kind of given. It doesn't actually do that. It's not been shown to do that.
That's actually something I thought. I didn't know that. I thought it actually was a good help to prevent injuries. So I run in the morning, and I always stretch my calves, especially before and after I run, to try to avoid injury. But
yeah, so injury is an interesting one. Like, injuries in general, they're so multifactorial. You couldn't put it down to being like, if you stretch, you're going to reduce your chance of injury. I think really the overwhelming preventative measure you could take, the biggest one, would be just getting strong or building up physical capacity.
Yeah.
So injury occurs commonly when the requirement exceeds. I mean, there's many instances in which injuries occur, but when we're talking about injuries in relation to like fitness, it'd be when the capacity of a tissue is exceeded by the demand of whatever activity that we're doing. So we're building up your work capacity, so being able to do exercise, being able to do stuff. Maybe that's getting stronger, maybe that's just moving more. That in itself will reduce your risk of injury. Stretching, perhaps not. That being said, if you injure yourself in a range of motion that's quite extreme, so for example, if you don't have the capacity to going back to the touch your toes example, and then you try to do something in that position which you don't have the flexibility for, maybe then there was an argument that like increasing your flexibility, increasing your stretching could reduce that risk because you'd be able to get into a better position. But generally speaking, strength is the biggest one. But flexibility can also be trained in a way, like doing strength training is a form of developing flexibility. There's a great phrase by Charles Poliquin, which is you get strong in the range trained. Wow, I'm going to really butcher that quote. That's definitely not the quote. And for some reason it's passed my mind, but essentially strength is gained in the range trained. That's the quote that he says. So whatever you try to, if you do a squat and you only squat down a quarter of the way, you're going to get strong a little bit outside of that range. But if you do a squat for a full range of motion, like ass to grass, then you're going to build strength through the entire range. So strength is gained in the range trained.
So how about like when you stretch, if you have really tight muscles and you stretch, you relieve the muscles. But if you have tight muscles, is that a cause for injury more easily?
I don't think that as far as I'm aware, the data on that isn't super concrete.
Okay.
So again, like, if you had tightness in fascia isn't necessarily like, you can't really think of it like an elastic band, right? So you can't think of tissue as being like physically tight. Like you stretch an elastic band. It's more like so the stretch feeling that you get is something called the stretch reflex, and this is a spinal reflex that basically is your body putting the brakes on. It's saying like it's a protective reflex, and it's like, whoa, we don't know what's happening past this point. We haven't experienced this before, maybe, or something bad might happen. So I'm going to put the brakes on. The stretch reflex is actually a contraction of the muscle, so much the same as if you're doing a bicep curl or whatever, and it just stops you from going any further. And to some extent, it's involuntary. So stretching that, you know, the early stages of stretching and flexibility comes from literally you getting better at tolerating that feeling. So, you know, stretching hurts, right?
Yeah.
There's pain. There's pain with stretching.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the more you stretch certainly the earlier phases of stretching, you get better at tolerating that pain. So you do something that hurts, and then relatively speaking, when you try to do it another time, it hurts less because it hurts before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It's just like regular training. Like when you do a pull up at first, like the one pull up hurts your muscles, right? It hurts. It's hard to do, but when you get stronger in that, it hurts less. You can do more pull ups. So one pull up is not going to hurt as much as when you could only do one pull up, right?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, exactly. It's almost like if you like stub your toe, you hurt your toe, and then somebody punches in your arm, it takes your mind off.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
you stubbed your toe. So it's just like this perception of pain. So that's one. It's another reason why like doing foam rolling has an impact on like, so you know when you foam roll or get like a tennis ball and or getting a massage, for example. There's other factors that go into it, but a lot of it comes down to like the massage, the foam rolling, the tennis ball. That hurts. And it makes the things that hurt in comparison feel like it hurts less. So that's the initial phases that happens with stretching, and that tightness sensation. But ultimately, that feeling of tightness is always going to be there at the end of your range of motion. So even now, like I can do, you know, front splits or middle splits, but I still feel tight. It's just that where I feel tight is a much further degree than it was beforehand.
Yeah.